guys ready?
That's how we've done it.
Ready.
Yeah, whenever you are.
So I'll stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heads up, Mrs. Treptow, our principal, had procedure done, so she's not with us tonight. She came in for a couple hours today, but she's trying to stay away and get healthy.
Okay, very good. Roll call, Kenny.
Here.
Guy.
Here.
Jeff. Present. And I'm here. Public comment?
None.
No public comment. All right. Discussion and possible action on the school board meeting minutes for June 15th, 2022, regular school board meeting. No comment. All right. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that one, Jeff.
Right, motion by Jeff and seconded by Kenny. Approval to accept the treasurer's report.
So you got the two sheets that you normally get here, just give you a little highlights of it. The budget I thought was gonna come out really close this year with no extra income from the state. We knew it'd be tight. We had a couple extra expenses that some open enrollment kids at the end and two IDS kids, about $85,000 worth. So I think we probably, when the auditors get done, they're actually negative, maybe 50,000. Still less than about 0.5%, but it's a little worse than I expected. But without any money from the state government, most districts are pumping heavy COVID relief money into this year to stay balanced this year, and we didn't put that much into it, but some, we saved some for next year yet, and we'll get a budget later, we'll talk about that. So just an expectation, we'll find out what the auditors really are here in August, what the plan will come up to be, but that's not what I'm thinking it's probably going to be. The numbers here are fairly high, revenues, expenditures, because that's ESSER, COVID relief money, revenues and expenditures. There's also a $100,000 tech grant that we got to spend on Chromebooks. So there's an extra 100,000 revenue and expense also. So the total numbers are higher than normally they would be at this time of the year, but that's kind of where I think it's coming out. A really positive one is Fund 50. If you've been around, you know that normally the food service is in a deficit. Last year we added $15,000 to their fund balance. This year looks like we're going to add over $100,000 to their fund balance, where the years before it was a $15,000 deficit, a $20,000 deficit. So food service had a great year, a lot of it because the kids eat free. We don't, this will carry us for a couple of years to find out what the normal eating patterns will be with kids, what staffing will be, what food costs will be, because expenditures are up, but we got reimbursed so well, it really, really helped our food service. But that also means if they have everything break down, they can fix it on food service money, they have to come out of the general fund.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
All right, Guy?
I'll second it.
Motion was made by Guy and approved by, or seconded by Jeff. The second one here is approval. I will make the motion to accept payroll for 7/29/2022 through 8/15/2022 and vouchers 423-153 through 423-259 and 202-100-586 through 2021-00642 for a total of $526,265.36. I'll second. Yeah, there you go. So we had the motion by Nathan and approved or seconded by Jeff. Committee reports. Finance committee.
Want to share anything, Jeff, we talked about?
Yeah, I had a good discussion, kind of talking about what the 2023 budget will look for. Really kind of just a draft or an iterative budget for right now until we get a couple final details, both the final auditor report as well as the final head count. But overall, look to be in a good place. I think we've still got some discussions about mill rates and kind of figuring out where do we land now as far as year-over-year growth. But overall, I thought it was a good discussion. It sets us up in a good place for, is it next meeting or when do we get final?
And we'll finalize it at the end of October.
Okay.
So it is drafted, right, Jeff?
Yeah, so this is a draft budget you'd be looking at tonight.
Nothing, no motion, no nothing. Moving on to old business, discussion of possible action on addition of middle school baseball and softball. Is Kobe coming?
Kobe was going to, but Alyssa was still at work and he was known. So he was gonna try to get here as soon as he could.
Okay, all right.
So.
Do you
but
want it?
I have both his Excel spreadsheet for expenses and then I have softballs as well. They're very similar. The only difference is they rely in exact field positions. as far as my-
Do we want to continue with it or do we want to try to wait till Kobe gets? Go ahead. All right, let's go with it then. All right, awesome.
So what they presented to you here, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, this is already included in the budget. We have for adoption later in the meeting, especially the coach's pay. That was the biggest part of it. You see now the breakdown of what the rest of the cost would be, around $4,400 per team. The only difference really is based on, looks like busing it today, pretty much.
As I say, Kobe emailed me.
Yep, I got it. Yep, yep.
And so where are we getting the equipment from?
Yeah, Charles, question, the helmets, the pants and the bats.
Helmets, pants, and bats, as far as at least softball wise, we have helmets, pants, jerseys, so for us, we wouldn't have to staff that. We also have a collection of bats that between the two could be split because the seasons don't necessarily like. So that's another thing that we could share that piece of it. The other piece is we do a lot of, because bats tend to be $350 a pop, $400 a pop. We typically go through booster club kind of things like that as well. And usually what we do is every so many years, whether we do fundraisers or things like that, and we purchase a bat, and then every so many years, we usually ask for a donation of a bat or something. At least on the softball end, Kobe's end, that would be this thing.
I believe most kids probably have their own bats. right?
Most kids bring their own bats, and now with headlights and COVID and things like that, a lot of kids are providing their own helmets. So it's only a few that we would provide for those that don't have the means to use.
Should we put something in there for even a general for all three of those?
Yeah, that was
You
one
know,
of my
even
questions
out to
was.
maybe 4,500, you know, an extra almost $75 a budget year just in case. You know, would that be a bad idea?
Doesn't hurt.
You know, I think you gotta have something in there. I mean, I agree, most kids have their own bats and helmets. But for the one or two that don't, I think we should have,
Something
even
in there.
$75 a year, I think is better than nothing.
I'm good with that.
I mean, I would almost put both of these budgets at even 4,500 and fill those three with the excess.
Or 46.
Or something like that.
Just something to have, you get that kid that needs a small catcher's glove that can't afford it or whatever, just to
Or
know
sometimes
that.
we have a righty, but you have a lefty kid.
Exactly, just knowing that you've got a couple $100 every year to just add to the pot. And then jerseys that seem $100, oh, so that's amortized,
If
okay.
we get into the rotation, I would assume we would get into the same rotation high school is, where every 5 years, it's our year. And yeah, so we kind of get into a rotation, so it's not depending what the rotation comes through, as far as every 5 years. So if it's 100 every five years, that gives us our pop at the time of year.
Okay.
Is this game field prep $170? Is that And I see 7 hours of labor seems fairly cheap.
We don't really, wouldn't have any additional costs for labor, I don't believe. Our current maintenance staff would take care of this. It wouldn't cost us additional.
Okay.
They don't take those many hours, but it's hours in their normal schedule they'll have to take. So mostly for the line that I would think, I don't know how much that line costs.
But would you have to allot those hours though for, I assume Mr. Anderson?
Mr. Anderson, Scott,
Would you have to allot those hours though?
I think it's just showing that we're eating some of their time.
they were just so bringing up their time, but it doesn't cost us any more money. No additional cost.
Yeah, there's no additional, cost. It's not,
So much stuff on our guys' plate, then we're expecting overtime for salary pay.
It'd be like what Dave does in the summer, if they're running late, then he does. But he did this.
Thank you, Dave.
it's not extra money that's coming out of the budget. And 7 hours to me seems like a whole lot. So like 7 hours for the entire season.
People who are just learning.
So you want to go to 4,500, you want to go to 4,500 for both, 9,000 total. Are there any more questions on it?
Is that what you were gonna go
Is
with?
that what
or
you-
were you gonna
That
go
was
for
just a
6?
suggestion.
No,
I don't,
I like 46.
Jeff's more of a finance guy, so.
Just give them a couple $150 each to spend every year. And
It's 4,600 a piece. Is that all right?
It's fine.
Fine?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, 4,600 a piece.
I'll make a motion to approve the middle school softball and baseball.
Right, so the motion was made by Guy and seconded by Ken.
You gotta keep up with everybody else.
All right, on to new business. Summer recreation activities report update.
So I've been on the job for 19 days. So it's a learning experience. I'm learning all the different facets of this job. But in terms of the fall, the Fall River rec baseball and everything like that, it was cool seeing you guys go 12-0. It was really cool seeing just the kind of camaraderie and the experience that he provided at the Prairie Street Diamonds, because it was my first experience with it. It's really cool to see everyone kind of gather in larger numbers than I anticipated. But it was an interesting experience being on that side of it, and then being on I'm learning a lot about softball rules, baseball rules, some dad yelling at me kind of what the ball is. And then I learned how to line fields. I'm learning all of that, but it was good to see the kids seem really into it. The parents seem very invested in it, and from that angle, I really enjoyed it. And I think in terms of not suggestions but things I've noticed or written down, like in charge of getting umpires, I think it might be nice going forward if you're offered some kind of like umping, I don't know if I word the class, but just some kind of umping teaching so I could get more high school kids who were more comfortable behind the plate calling strikes and balls, so that parents are happier, and then I'm not having to worry about them incorrectly calling something, or parents worried about what the count is or things like that. So like if I had someone who could teach, I don't know, like that's the wrong word, but like some kind of instruction on how to be a better behind the plate umpire, field umpire, like that would help for me, because I mean I had to jump in and field ump, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I watched a YouTube video and that was about it. So that would be helpful for myself, and I think maybe I can get more people if I advertise that earlier. Like if you want to be behind the plate, come out on X day, take 2 hours, hour, whatever it might be, and just learn how to be an umpire. And that might just, I'm being selfish, that would help me out in terms of getting umpires. Just because yesterday, I can only confirm so much time with these kids, right? I can only say, are you going to be here? Are you going to be here? And then they still don't show up, and then I'll fill in, of course. But if I have 2 kids do that in one night, then I'm really probably out of it. So that's just on a selfish end, that would be nice for me.
And I do believe maybe Dave, they already do that for basketball. I
As I
think
say,
I
I
do
wouldn't
basketball.
stop at baseball, I would do basketball.
Yeah,
Also
I
have
think
like
they
a
already
camp
do
for
it
all
for
of it.
basketball, that they have somebody come in and they have a little thing. I think they have
I thought
in
Cody-
past
Cody taught a class that was umping and officiating.
Oh, okay.
he did have a class that was umping and officiating.
Well, it might have just been on a television screen or
I
something.
don't know, they watched videos.
Oh,
I don't think they brought a guy in, but there is an umping and officiating class that they do. Again, that's, a 45 minutes to an hour for a couple different times. Baseball and softball, they're the most complex sports to know all the rules. I mean,
Yeah.
There's a lot of rules, and there's a lot of things that go on with pitchers and running and when you can steal and runners on first and second, whatever. So it's a harder one to grasp for sure. But I'm positive they did a fishing and umping and officiating class.
yeah.
And maybe we talked to Cody about how that was handled. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, I can look into it a little more. I didn't know it was all that offered, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they did, I was pretty sure they did it for basketball because they have so many rec games down here and it's, you end up with, leading 10 refs in a day, and I think that they actually had something.
I'm pretty sure Cody did it, so I remember he was down there, and basically we also doing it. So.
And maybe there's a refresher course before the rec basketball season starts that you can get some of the kids. I know the few kids that are up here that are reffing actually do a pretty darn good job. They play the game and they do a pretty good job. I just think softball and baseball are hard.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many rules and.
I just don't think they get confident behind the play.
Yeah, right.
They're scared, right?
Right.
So in order to, it's the same way like a middle school baseball and softball team are gonna make kids more comfortable playing varsity because you're getting into it early, right? It's making you a better player, and by the time you play high school sports, you just feel more comfortable, right? It's the same thing with coaching and making, whatever it might be. If you do it, the earlier you do it, the more instruction you get, the more confident you are. And I mean, I can throw them on C2 softball to start and then work with whatever it might be, but some kind of help for them, just because it gets scary when I say, can you do behind the plate? And I see it on their face, like I just ask them to public speak, and it's tough.
Kind of building off that, but then two birds, like, is there thought about adding once in a while a third official, right? So having someone almost kind of sit and observe and learn, but then for that case that someone doesn't show up, now you got 3 down to 2.
Yeah, I think that would be more of a case of like the money aspect. They're doing it for the money, right? So like if I asked them to come watch, if I offered them some money to do it, I'm sure I could, have them learn like that. So that'd be a great idea to like just come watch the game and see how it looks. Like if you were pumping, right, I could have someone come watch you so you hear cues and things like that.
Yeah.
That's honestly, that's what I did the first game. I listened to you and I watched the video. That's how I did the next day. So I think that would be beneficial, but that's another good idea too. So.
Except you weren't calling the blocks, right?
He was a lefty. I was on first. I was confused. But I think also like keeping, because there's so many different leagues, just keeping rules in the dugout laminated would be something I would suggest. Just because for myself, like when I changed the pitching mound, right, from 35 to 40 or whatever it might be, like I was looking through my email all the time, but I think having laminated rules for whatever league you're in the dugout would be beneficial.
It's awesome.
And then just weather stuff too, that umps know, so they have it on view, like if for some reason I wasn't there, then if they had to call a game, it'd be nice if they could just pull that so that, coaches like things written down, right? So like you want to be able to give them regulations, or this is why I'm calling it, and then show them the paperwork. That was for me, that would be beneficial. The only other thing I saw was, in terms of bleachers, it might be nice to get some more up there. That's just something, all parents have their own chairs, obviously I know that, but it seems I don't, you would know this better than I would, but like that one bench that's on for baseball, I don't know if we need another one. Most kids stand up anyways, but I just don't know if that's needed.
I try to make my kids stand up.
Yeah, I don't really know the baseball.
I did, Dennis, this is something we could ask Brian Anderson, I think, because I drove down by the high school baseball diamond the other day. I think there's 2 sets of aluminum bleachers.
We have 3
that are just sitting up next to the fence under this tree. I mean, we could have moved them.
Everybody, what tree is?
Well, right when you drive in, there's a tree right at where the fence, I call it the old summer house, but there's a fence that runs up there, and then there's a tree. And these bleachers are right up against the fence where people park. Yeah, where everybody parks up next to the fence. There was 2 sets of aluminum bleachers with wheels on them up there, and I thought, if I could have got them up there that night, I would have took them up there that night, because there was a lot of people at, First Street thing, and
we could look at those, otherwise I was looking at more of those portable ones where you have 2 sets by every field, and there's a lot of people, like the other night, I just moved 1 set over, so we had 3.
And I think these had wheels on them.
Yeah.
I think so.
We'll take a look at those.
Yeah.
They're just doing nothing with it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure they're trying to have for baseball or something. We should have that.
And then the only other thing I had was, I just like to meet with the coaches and just see what went right, what went wrong, what would you like to improve, what can I do better at, what was good about the league, what could be, I think just feedback like that is what I would do. For training sports. So I'm trying to get through every day with some different things, so I'm sure I'm a little behind on that, but just setting up meetings to feel out how everything went since it ended yesterday. So that's kind of what I've noticed. Things I've written down all the time, but yeah, again, it was just cool to see. Fall River team especially, I think I got to see every Fall River play, and it was fun to watch. So.
Being on the school board, we hear a lot of positives and a lot of negatives, mostly negatives, to be honest with you. So that are now, we hear a lot of negatives. Dave, we've heard a lot of good things. I've heard a lot of good things about you. And I know that the kids down at school at the Summer Strength and Speed, they appreciate you. They appreciate your demeanor. I know the parents in the public that have been up at all those things, they really, you've made a great first impression.
That's
And
awesome.
a small town and everything else, sometimes that's, when rumors, sometimes in small towns, that's hard to do. So you've made a really great first impression. So it's great to have you.
Thank you. I really appreciate
To
that.
piggyback that, I've heard a lot about your correspondence, your feedback with email, very timely. So yeah, they do appreciate that.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm leaving some people out as I'm going through, but yeah, I think just showing up is a big part. And I think I can show up. And I can show up and I can do work. So that's but I'm glad to hear it. So thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely. Anything else, guys, on that one? No? All right, discussion of possible action on co-curricular handbook.
So I had an email I from Ken. I changed those 2 typos. There are 2 typos in the co-curricular that I changed. And so gone through that. And the only other piece is I was at an AE conference on Monday, and they talked a lot about eligibility. Like on the collegiate level, NIL is a huge thing right now, but they're also emphasizing student athletes at the high school level, just reminding them that any financial assistance in their student athlete lives is completely not okay. And so I was thinking about adding that one piece of addendum to the, just obviously I understand that it doesn't apply to most kids, right? You're not getting a call from a Hy-Vee grocery store, it's just having it in there so them knowing if someone did approach them that they can't accept any financial assistance from any outside entity. Until you get to college. And in terms of all the other stuff, I went through it. I was the co-curricular. I didn't have any changes besides those typos and adding that addendum. But I know, Ken, you had 2 questions in your email that I was going to address. The first one being on page 10 of the co-curricular, talking about being 10 minutes late to class. And I know you addressed the issue of whether if something happened, like students like and snow or being in a car accident, something like that. And to me, that would be an excused absence. So like the 10 minutes applies to being like an unexcused absence. So if that had happened, right, a student came in and told me that they had a weather issue or something like that, I could verify that they got in an accident or something, that would be an excused absence in my mind. So I think that would be fine. But I can add an addendum to it. I didn't really see the need to, but if you would like that, or if you guys felt like I needed to add a clause on weather into that, it was on page 10, being 10 minutes late as an unexcused absence. I can do that.
I talked to that Bill's more acid God. Yeah, stop acid God. The other one.
The other one was the addressing the alcohol on page 12. If a student athlete is going to church or something like that, obviously communion wine or things like that doesn't apply to that rule.
That's an act of God too.
Literally.
Sure is. Sure is. Funny.
But the way I read on page 12, that if you do take communion wine, you're suspended.
That I didn't.
How it's written right now, I think that's,
What part of it, I guess, would be my question? Like what sentence makes you think that?
well, the very last one, but may not consume alcohol nor the possession of alcoholic beverages, even though they have parental permission.
I
So
think
if you consume it in any aspect, you're suspended.
I think in terms of, I can add then saying church doesn't apply, but in my mind, in communion, right, you're drinking the blood of Christ, so it's not technically wine. So
To Christians,
yeah, for sure, for Christians, or whatever it might be. So if you're drinking communion wine, then in a church, that is technically signified as the blood of God, right, or whatever it might be. So that didn't apply to me in terms of wine, like specifically, but I can add something if you feel that would be needed. That does not apply.
I'm just thinking for the person who doesn't believe that it's the blood of God and it's just wine and now it's alcoholic beverage. You know,
You can put
yeah,
communion.
I don't want to, you know,
Included or
I'm
something.
literally playing devil's advocate, but you know, I just think it needs to be cleaned up a little bit.
We gotta be on the side of common sense though.
I mean, you can add it.
I mean, if you're going to church to drink wine, I guess, yeah.
You gotta know.
Yeah, that's different. I get, but I could add something.
Is the word that it would be another parent who knows the kid went to church and is bringing it up for not necessarily their athlete, but different athlete?
Yeah, I mean, something.
It doesn't hurt.
Sure.
It's probably not a big deal, but it could avoid someone from making a problem.
Right. Yeah, common sense, it's no big deal, but that one person. I had read over quite a bit of this before I came tonight, I could have missed it. But does our co-curricular start, in the middle school?
The co-curricular is, so high school athletes have to sign it, that they've read it through it, but the middle school is only a physical or alternate year card. And that is not, they do not have to sign that they did that. Would
Now,
that be something we want to start?
well, we had an issue, one other time, middle school person got caught at a party. And then had alcohol. Then when they got into high school, they thought that they should start over.
Actually, most places do start over in high school. Okay,
I didn't know.
you might, a lot of places may have enforced the code for middle school, but then they wipe it clean, your high school career starts over.
I know
That's
that,
pretty
this was long ago that this happened. But, yeah, then they thought, well, middle school, well, that happened in middle school. Now, you know, she got, say, 2 offenses in middle school, and all of a sudden she gets up to 3 offenses in high school. It's like, we got a serious problem here, you know, but she's only getting suspended, or he is only getting suspended for a year at that point. I just was wondering if there was something in
I
there.
would direct Dave to force it in middle school, but in most schools, when you're a freshman, you start clean. Did you learn something? Okay, start over.
Okay, that's fair enough. I just had that question. I didn't know if we were going down to middle school to start the offenses or not.
I think kids are doing more and more things early.
Yeah.
It's probably not a bad idea to enforce it in middle school. We may want to have something.
And I don't care if you don't have to sign it, but I'm more concerned about the offense wise. You know, if they get caught in middle school, is it their first offense? And then they get caught in high school, is it going to be their second offense? Or would it drop back down to their first offense?
About 9 to 12, we start fresh, but that's what I've seen.
Okay,
So,
and that, I don't have a problem with that, just as long as
yep.
we've got the line drawn, what's gonna be.
Would you like me to, so just to be clear, should I send out the code of conduct to middle schoolers and require it to be signed, or should I just send it out to them?
I think sending it out would be a start.
Okay.
You know, that would be a good start.
Send it out to parents.
Okay. Sounds good. I can do that.
Don't make them sign anything right away. If it gets to be a problem, we can start having them sign it.
Sounds good.
I think that should help you very fast. Yeah.
We have to make a motion, correct, to accept the, okay. So we're looking for a motion to accept the co-curricular handbook.
I'll make a motion to accept the co-curricular handbook.
I'll second it.
Motion was made by Jeff and seconded by Guy. Yeah, we do need to vote on this. We do need to vote on
Yeah,
this.
you should go all in
Yeah,
favor.
yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Those not in favor?
Nay.
3-1.
It's all right. 3-1. Of what part?
Yeah, what part?
I guess I'm kind of, it bothers me if you look on page 12, the gatherings. I guess I have a hard time punishing students for potentially, that's the potential, obviously, for them not doing anything wrong.
The history of that, and it's pretty much every school in the state that's gone to this, because I wasn't drinking, I was just there. You can't prove it. So every kid could get off. I was just there, I wasn't drinking. And pretty much, I think it's all the way to do it this way. That way, if you don't want to get caught, don't be there. All my friends are there. Well, then you gotta do something different. You gotta do something with different friends or whatever, but no one ever could be accused and actually processed as an offender because they'd all say, "No, I wasn't drinking." So pretty much every school's gone with this for a number of years now. Probably since you guys graduated, but
It was like this when I graduated in 1997.
oh, it was.
And I think Color's been this way for a long, long time.
Long time.
I mean, I get it, I just,
Don't go where bad things happen.
Yeah, I think the idea is to get kids to go, I'm not gonna put myself in that situation. We're gonna drink it, this is not gonna be a part of that, not gonna make a difference. This is a student.
What would you say about graduation parties though? Because I've been to a lot of graduation
Yeah,
parties
absolutely.
and there's other students there that have not graduated yet.
Yeah, and then, I mean,
Yeah, that's just one point I think of
Right.
right
I
off
know,
the top of
absolutely.
my head.
I just think.
I know there's a couple graduation parties where kids that were.
No, but this
I mean-
says that you can't even be.
That's a
there.
gathering.
You cannot be
I
there.
guess, is that a
But
city
that's-
law?
but you have the context.
When it's a kid's
Yeah, it's
party.
contact, you have to have context with
I
it.
think, I mean, it's situational.
Yeah,
Right.
I think it's
You have to examine
parental.
each situation, like, if you were to come to me with a picture at a graduation party, I would take that completely different as an October Thursday night.
At a bonfire and
On-
down by the
you know what
river.
I mean, so I think you just have to analyze each situation. I understand it reads as a catch-all, but I think each situation is contextual and situational, and you have to gather the evidence from that point. But I understand the point of graduation party, and I understand that your hesitancy with that for sure. But I think analyzing each situation would be for what it is, right? It's a graduation party for us, a bonfire in the middle of the season. I think that would be my opinion on it.
I'd like to think if there's a party with 10 people, one guy's sneaking alcohol, the other 9 don't know. And then that guy gets an underage drinking while I was at a party with these other 9. Well, now are all other 9 not knowing that there was alcohol? There is a gathering, there was underage consumption. Are we disciplining all other 9 when they really didn't do anything wrong and didn't even think they were in that place of doing wrong?
I think that's where Dave or whoever.
But I think
principal
that's
is gonna
where,
talk
if
to
you
them.
start doing that, you get some people here, some people, these 9 got suspended, these 9 didn't. I think we're going down a terrible situation potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. And again, I don't think you can put contextual in a rule book, right? I think it has to be a catch-all. And then from that point, you have to cover yourself in this rule book, right? And then from that point, I think you can look at situations, right? If some guy brought a flask in his back pocket to a party where 9 other guys were hanging out, and they had nothing and they had no idea, right? I think, again, that situation, that context, that party, whatever it might be, gathering evidence would be the next thing I would do, figuring out what happens. Did that really happen? Or was there more to it? You know, I think analyzing that, but I think in a rule book covering as a catch-all and kind of putting a little fear into them is a good thing. That's my opinion, at least having them understand. Like, we're trying to get you out, we're trying to put yourself in the best situation possible. But I understand things like that happen, and then I would analyze that situation if that did happen, or at least gather evidence and try to understand what was going on to real. But I think in the rule book, this is at least good, but that's just my opinion on it.
No, and I get it. I'm like, I don't want to be like if you're underage drinking, I think you should be punished. I agree with that. It's when you're not underage drinking where I have a hard time with. So.
Any discussion? Yeah, absolutely. All right, discussion of possible action on volleyball friendship tournament at JAG.
You got in your notes that the volleyball team is going to the, wants to go to the friendship tournament, August 25th and 26th. He's staying overnight the 25th, and we always have board policy approval to stay at an overnight trip.
What do we have for like adult supervision?
Well, if it's at Rosinsky's condo, they'd be responsible, wouldn't
I
they?
think typically I don't know, Nathan, have you ever been to this?
I have not.
Okay. I think last year they had the Troutmans and the Sensies, the 4 adults, and they have had other parents there too.
I just want to make sure there's parents there.
Yeah,
Just they're using the condo.
And they're not drinking. Yeah,
And there's no cost associated with us.
no, it's just a regular bus.
I think we're messing-
I'll make a motion that we let the girls volleyball team go on a friendship tournament overnight.
Yeah, I'll second.
Motion was made by Guy and seconded by Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Those who are not? All right, discussion of possible action on the 2022-2023 preliminary budget.
I'll go a little summary of this. You got the main summary sheet here that I'll go through a little bit of this and just talk about. We'll do the same thing with a sheet like this when we get to October. We're waiting, as Jeff kind of commented earlier, we need the pupil counts, we need the final equalization value and state aid, and then by the end of October, we'll adopt the final budget. So this is a draft budget. We have to have something adopted so we can operate for a couple months while we wait for the final data to come through. We're pretty fortunate if you look at the bottom lines first, the pupil count that we were going up last year. That kind of saved us in a lot of ways because most of our finances are enrollment driven. And when you look at the number of kids leaving, graduating, and the number of young students coming in, we look like we could go up a few more students this next year. Open enrollments, the other caveat to this, we don't know the exact data on that. We see a lot of positive things about number of people enrolling in. And the number of people that we're getting tours to, so feel like our numbers are going to even go better for next year, but you don't know until the school year actually starts and they all get here. Then you go through the top line. I tried to go 5 years comparison. You can see what the dollar change, percentage change, revenue limits, of course, it's very, very stagnant or down, and most of that's based on pupil count. The only other part of that revenue limit is 3 years ago, the state gave us $179 per pupil. Last year, they gave us nothing. This next year, they're giving us nothing. And then they say they'll make us whole the following year. Well, I went through the Baird model and shared with the finance committee. If they're going to make us whole, to me, that's $600. It's $200 each year for 3 years. Well, if we get 300 instead of 600, and then 200 the years after, we would actually be fairly level in our finances. So as you hear the top talking next year, when they get to the state budget, they're talking more than $300 per pupil on the revenue limits. That's good news. If you're talking less than that, we'd be in a world of hurt. We would maybe have to join the rest of the county. As you talk to our finance committee, we are the only district in the county that has not gone to referendum to override revenue limits. Everyone else has done it already. But if we could get those dollars, we could probably avoid that for a number of years to come. So that was the number that we wanted to get out there. You see equalization here, you see how this year it's jumping up right now. The expectation is about $355,000. That's pupil driven from the number of kids in school a year ago to the kids in school this year. And also that includes, we had no summer school the year before. We had summer school last year. We had really small summer school the year before. So those increase in student hours and pupil count gives us a big jump this year in state aid. We won't continue to get that. It's going to stay fairly level from there, but a big jump this year. Of course, if that's going up that much with a revenue limit, there's a hard cap, we can't go above that. So if we give you more state aid, we need less property tax to fill the gap. So you see the Fund 10 levy is expected to go down almost $300,000 because there's a limit on how much money we have. Now, for the all tax levy, I actually have that staying fairly stagnant or going up just a little bit because if you look down to with property, go to property tax, property values next, is up 7.8%, 2 years ago, 7.2, a year ago, 5.1 in this past school year, so I just put down 5% again. With the combination of the factors above, we're looking at the levy rate per thousand, 860 5 years ago, down to 735 this past year. At this, it go down to 725. Now with this, I put in an extra $400,000 that would be going towards our referendum debt. We could, when the district passed, I say this again, when the district passed the referendum for $7.8 million, that gave the board the authority to tax for that. You could have taxed it all in year one, or you spread it over 20 years. So, but you can't do it in year one, you all get crucified. So you spread that out. But to try to keep the mill rate fairly level, so we are having going up and down, taxes went down and went up this year, then down the next year, we could tax possibly that much extra and keep that in our Fund 39 fund so that when we can pay down our debt, we would probably pay off one extra year. So in 1 year, we pay off 2 years of debt. That could save us potentially $160,000 approximately. It's just like you can pay your house off early, you pay your car off early. If we pay it 1 year early, that could be a saving. So when we come to October, we'll really bite into that and see what do we really want to do with that? Do we want to tax extra to pay the debt early because we have the authority to do so? But right now, it's just a proposal to put into the budget. But that's something we'll think about when we get to this October. So that's the summary sheet. Then the rest of them, it goes through the individual funds. I'm not going to go into all those a lot of big detail, but a lot of the increase for Fund 20, Fund 10, which is the first couple pages, is the state aid increase, which is increased enrollments, the increased costs. The three major drivers in the increased costs are health insurance, benefits, and teaching salary increases, and then the extra IDS students that we found out that happened this year that were more expensive than we expected. They will still be on the roll, so that's going to increase our budget for them also. The third page is the Fund 27 budget. That will go up a little bit again, health insurance and increased salary costs. Then we get to the Fund 38 and 9, that's where I put in the extra $400,000. Fund 50, I've got it down as a little bit of a loss this year because I have no idea what the participation rates are going to be. But if they've got a $120,000 fund balance, they could take a $10,000 deficit the following year. And Fund 80 is up pretty close to breaking even, almost much like it was this year. So that's the budget broken down into the different funds. And again, we'll get more detail when we get to October, but this will give us a budget to have in Skyward. So as Colleen is processing bills and Andrew's making payroll, she's got some numbers they can actually work with.
My chance to ask questions earlier, so good.
This is your wheelhouse, Jeff, so.
Do we need a motion to approve the treasury report?
I'll take a motion.
All right, so I will make a motion to approve the 2022-2023 preliminary budget.
The motion was made by Jeff and seconded by Kenny. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
See you later. Discussion of possible action on the employee handbook.
So I was printed out for you this, and I'll go page by page where the changes are from last year to this next year. Some of these are in red, that's the changes. There's some strikeouts also. Much of this has already been approved by the board. We did at different times approve some things, and I'll kind of highlight those. And I'll tell you the other suggestions we have. A lot of it is stipend type things, but page 23 is the first place I find we made a change and Andrew and I were talking about this one, right on top about our company that we work with suggests we have FMLA calculated either in a fiscal year or a calendar year. And we find out that most of the time the management track is in our fiscal year, July 1 through June 30th. So we put that in the handbook. It's in our agreement with the company we deal with for this, but we thought I should have it in the handbook so it's clear to everybody. FMLA, your weeks of FMLA correspond with the school year and our fiscal year. The PTO in red there, that's what the board approved. We gave teachers an extra PTO day, so it says +1. And then gave the examples. That was already approved a while ago. Page 24. I put this in D. Just in case, let's say somebody was not getting their work done, and they want to take a PTO day, because PTO is kind of almost going to be treated as vacation, or if I'm leaving and I just say, hey, I'm taking 20 PTO days, I'm going to be gone this next month, but there's a whole bunch of work that's not getting done, that I should be getting done, then I got to get the work done before I can take the PTO days. So that's, we put that in there. And then I crossed out in the middle, I don't think the board really wants to get involved in this. We have a PTO bank. So if someone has had major, we had a family last year where the child was very, very sick and people wanted to donate to help them out, so they didn't lose pay. So, but I don't think the board really wants to be the one to make that approval. I think that that can be held within our office. So that's, those two are new. The first page I showed you, the board had already approved. If those two are new, you could be approved. Then go to page 30. Sorry. It's oh, it's on 20. It's on hardship, something hardship licensure.
Yeah, but it's not red, so it does.
It's on 30.
Yeah.
Oh, it didn't show up as red. Oh, okay.
36?
Yeah, it's on 30, Article licensures. It's on page 30, it didn't come up in red, it shows there in black. I must not have hit the right font there. A few years ago, when I came, that there was no reimbursement for credits of any kind, because it really wasn't our salary schedule, but there, we were at the time dealing with some hard to fill licensures. So on 30, near the bottom, hard to fill licensures. So the board at that time approved $100 per credit for people who are taking a class. We want you to teach something we have a hard time finding somebody. Maybe you're not certified for that, but you'd like to be certified. We want to help you do that. And at that time, the board said, yeah, we can put that in for $100 per credit. We're finding out that doesn't come close to covering the credits. Their grad credits are like $450 is probably more common. So the recommendation here is to raise that to $350. Not all, that one's a new one. And so the new ones, you can just say, yep, to all of them, or you can say, yeah, I want that one, but not that one, whatever you guys decide. But that's my recommendation on page 30 to raise that to $350 per credit. It still doesn't pay the whole thing. The person still has to invest in it.
Make sure you change the words too.
Yep. The next one, I'm on page 32. I just added. That's not so. I copied it. Some copied it red and some didn't copy it red. Okay. Oh, there it is. It's highlighted. In the top paragraph, representation. An event an employee is called to a meeting with representatives of district board, and I added the word express purpose of issuing disciplinary discharge. Ryan, Brian, and I this past year, so the word express is simply added. That's supposed to be read. We had times we call somebody in and want to talk to them, and they wanted to say, well, you just trying to get some information. This isn't discipline. We just need to talk to find out what did you do, how did this work, why did you do whatever you did. And we always were debating, do we have to tell them, because in this paragraph, it says, you have to tell them you want, you can have representation. I'm used to where I'm calling it in with a letter of reprimand. I'm calling it in with a verbal warning about something you should have done or should not have done. That's when I tell you, you can bring in representation. I don't even have to tell you that, but they can always say, no, stop. I want to get someone in here with me. We don't have to tell people, but this is a nicety that we do say, this is a discipline meeting. You can have representation. It's a nice thing to do to the employee. I just changed the word express purpose, right? That's the reason we're having this meeting, is to implement discipline. If that's not the express meeting, purpose of the meeting, if it turns into that, then we have to say, okay, we're gonna have to do something here. You may want representation. When it changes purpose from investigation to a discipline meeting. So that's why I put that in. All right, let's see if 40. We start. Sorry. Near the top of page 40 is a cross out. This one wouldn't be dark. We had this issue this year where someone resigned their contract. This is A, at the very end of A, where I crossed out after July 1st, and I put in the word sign their contract, because I was under the impression that once you sign a contract, you're bound by it. But you can sign your contract and resign after that, as long as before July 1st, and there's no liquidated damages. Well, as it's getting harder and harder to find teachers, the earlier we get people to know that they're coming back or not, and holding to that, it's going to be easier to find people. As we've interviewed lately, the pool's getting really shallow by this time of year. So we suggesting changing from July 1st to after you sign the contract. Technically, you have to sign a contract by June 15th. That we can't force you to sign it earlier than that. So this doesn't add a lot of time, but that's much closer to the end of school than July 1st is. Oh no, oh that's good. Every following back on 36 too, it didn't show up, but there are some cross outs on 36. This is the top page, what not being paid, and then something that didn't seem to apply anymore. This is basically because we told staff in the to help out our hourly workers or custodians or aides and stuff. On a snow day, if you're essentially need to come in and get snow cleared, that's good. And then you don't have to stick around the rest of the day, because teachers don't have to make up those days all the time. But we're making aides make up the time, food service workers make up the time, and custodians make up the time. So it's not treating everybody the same. And we thought it'd be more fair, and the board approved this when we offered the increase in salary to everybody, that they should all be treated the same. So they're all valued the same. So that's why those cross-outs on 36 are there.
That's nice.
So that one kind of had been approved already, but there it is in the handbook, just so it's clear and states that. 45. They crossing out there, that was some old language that didn't really apply anymore. In the partial school year employees payout line, depending on how many weeks fall in the school year. It didn't seem like that was necessary anymore. That was more of an editorial change. Then we get to page 49, which is the salary schedule. That has been approved already for teachers. Page 50 is the salary schedule for support staff and bus drivers. That was already approved also. Page 52, some of this has been approved. All the red on the right, Skills USA, Play Target, and all those down to Get the Talented. Those have already been approved by the board. I think the 9th and 10th grade advisors had already been approved also. What I updated was the mentor leader, and the teacher partner. The partner, you have a new teacher coming in, our new tech ed guy, he's taught for 15 years. He needs a partner to help him wear the copy machine, how to use the code in the machine, just to get organized. He doesn't need a long, help you with classroom discipline. Where the mentor is someone who does more work with the classroom, it's more of it for a newer teacher. So we differentiate who gets that. And then the mentor leader is the person who organizes all this, does the training, and then follows up and has meetings during the year with the mentors and the mentees and the partners. So we updated those to try to make that more realistic for what the time they're spending. And then down below, this is already approved, the standard hour rate. We went to $30 for summer school pay. And that is the standard rate for not just summer school, but for other things as well. So the mentor part hadn't been updated, approved by the board, the rest have been. And then next page 53, our last proposal, this PTO-led bank we talked about before. Andrew and I have kind of come to a policy where twice a year we're going to ask you, would you like to, in September, donate to the lead bank? So we have pays in there. And if something's going on during the year in January, we'll ask you again. We do this, we avoid a situation is Jessica needs PTO days, and we all like Jessica, so we give her PTO days. Just everyone writes out to Dennis, no one likes him, so if he doesn't get any PTO days, you're out of luck. Sorry, people hate you. So we try to have a bank set with already for whoever's there, and we can get them to whoever is in need, not a popularity contest. So that's why we do it that way. That's why we're making that change, so that it would be clear. Twice a year, we're going to ask you, anyone want to donate? And we'll try to keep the bank flow and let them know. And I think after last year, they saw with at least one person, it's like, yeah, we should donate once in a while. We should put it in there with the extra PTO they've been given. I think more people might donate too. So there's a whole bunch of editorials. Some of those are new. If you got questions, or if you want to take them all together, if you want to say, well, that was not a great idea, but I like the rest, you can make whatever motion you feel is appropriate.
Would anyone like to talk individually on any topic? So,
Are you good with us making a motion then for everything?
Absolutely.
Okay.
all right, well then with that, I will make a motion to approve the changes proposed and walk through in the employee handbook.
Motion was made by Jeff, seconded by Guy. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Discussion and possible action on adoption of academic standards.
Why every school board is to say, here's what we're going to teach. And so that it's clear, it becomes kind of repetitive, but our recommendation every year is that we teach the Wisconsin state standards. I don't know why we teach anything else. But I think this is where they can have that discussion. If you believe that some other things are being taught that you don't believe should be taught in school, this is the time that the board can have that discussion. If you hear things made up like, what's it? Think of some of the words right now. Huh? I don't want to know that. Anyway, some things that I hear people talk about, they shouldn't teach that in school. I go, you don't teach that. So I don't know what the big deal is, but it's a political thing. So I'm trying to see, this is the schools, not all this.
And do we need a motion for that then?
Board has to
Adoption of the academic standards. So I didn't mean to rush this along, but I was just making sure.
What was it actually called? The Wisconsin what?
Wisconsin state standards.
I'll put forward a motion to adopt the Wisconsin state standards for the academic standards.
Motion was made by Kenny, seconded by Guy. All those in favor? Aye. Those not in favor? Review of administration and board goals.
Well, we kind of going to table some of this because Derek's not here. But I say for administrative goals, my main goal is to see the young man right here, and Jennifer, who's not here right now, but is to, with Ryan's help, mentor those people so they become the very best administrators. If they would want to be here for 10 years, help them be successful. If we can do that this year and maybe the next year or two, so they're off to a great start, they can be great administrators for this community and want to stay here. That's my goal. Good.
Do
No, I just think that's, we know they're great candidates, so the more we can support them, help them, make them help them reach their potential, I think they're going to be steady.
Do we want to wait for the board goals and for Mrs. Treptow to come back, or are we?
I think we'll add
Table
table
it
that for
and
next
go-
time,
and
and
go
Bear's
back.
here and Jennifer can share what her
Yeah,
goals
yeah,
are.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Great. So there's no motion, and we're gonna table it until the August meeting.
Yep.
Okay. Seclusion and restraint report.
So every year I make a report for you guys regarding how many seclusion restraints we've done as a district. Each year I get staff certified in nonviolent crisis intervention. What that essentially, quick word means is you spend most of your day learning how to de-escalate kids who may be escalated. And then there is a piece of the training where you learn how, if you do restraintlessly, how do you do that in a safe manner. So you're not obstructing the airway or anything like that. But you're keeping them safe so they don't harm themselves or others. And that's really the only time you ever do it. There's a chance they're gonna harm themselves or others. So first step, use your de-escalation techniques. Second step, if they're gonna be a harm to themselves or others, you have to make a decision, but you gotta do it in a way that they're still safe. We had none last year, so that's great. We've had years here where we've had those. They're typically, in my experience, with the younger kids. Younger kids are less verbally, they have less verbal ability, so the only way they can communicate sometimes is physical. That's why you typically see it in the younger students. The older students, you can typically talk to them, or they'll just storm out, walk out of the building, and you let them walk. Once they're bigger than you, which doesn't take long for me, you don't do that. So yeah, pleased to say that our de-escalation techniques last year were successful. And I think the training does help staff. I was thinking about actually last night when we were trained this coming year, I would probably focus that training for nonviolent crisis intervention with our elementary based staff, because they're the ones typically doing this. And I would also be trained, so if something did happen at the high school level, that's under confidence.
Is there a training program that you use? Is there a form? Is there
Actually,
something they
season
sign?
5, yeah, season 5 is one of the people that we pay to have a trainer come in, and they come in and train the staff on how to utilize it. It's an all-day training.
It's all they
8
do.
hours. Then you're trained for a year. So it's something that you have to go to.
Yeah, okay. Is that not just between like teachers and students? Is it between teachers and teachers or teachers and?
Well,
We can
yes,
use it.
I would honestly, the de-escalation techniques, yes. I think it helps as a human being, how
Right.
if you're maybe at a concert on the weekend and somebody in front of you's had a really good day, you use those de-escalation techniques sometimes, absolutely. I don't know anything about that. I'm not sure.
Probably true.
That's great.
I'd be interested to see the paper. I mean, it doesn't have to be something that we table.
We get a,
I
I can actually share it with you, I have a copy of mine.
Yeah, could you send me an email? I'd just be interested to see what it is.
It'd be probably better for 7 physical, I mean, I can-
Oh, okay.
it's
That's
like
fine, cool.
30 pages.
All right.
So pop in, I'll show it to you.
Yeah, awesome. It doesn't have to be right now or tonight.
No, but when you have time, come in, I can walk it through
Yeah, very cool.
what the training is.
All right.
Sorry, how many people have gone through it today?
I get typically to date right now, all the special ed staff and aides. I'm gonna target probably more towards the elementary, since that is more the people who are gonna do that. But then I'll also be training for that middle high school de-escalation. And then probably every 2 years, I'm thinking I do the middle high school, just so that they're getting the refresher on the de-escalation techniques.
Do you have to, I'm sorry, Nate, do you have to hold that certificate to?
To do it, yes.
Okay.
I've had it, if you don't have it, like, for example, I had a little one who didn't want to come into school sometimes. And maybe I was, if I happened to be out of compliance because I was in between, for whatever reason, I look at the parents, if you want me to help you, and they'd say, please, yes, okay. Because I got that verbal from the parent. But typically, yeah, you want to do it every year. So you can, I would not have if there was an emergency, I always tell my staff, there's an emergency, there's a kid running across the street, the fire truck's coming, grab the kid, I don't care what the judge says, grab the kid whether you're trained or not. But if it's a kid that we know can be explosive and we get called to that kid, I want people who are trained with that child.
Are coaches trained in it?
Not.
No. How about like, okay,
I'm sure there is something in the coach realm for de-escalation that Dave could look into. It's just a little bit different because it does get more hands-on for, you know, a quarter to 30% of the day.
okay, I was just asking.
But I understand where your thinking is on that de-escalating,
Yeah,
whether it's an athlete or parent or what.
right, absolutely, that's, yeah, I mean,
It might be just good training for everybody.
that's what was my next thing I was gonna say, it's good training for everybody. Maybe it's something how much does it cost if we were to do it every
Yeah,
year?
there's a
I mean,
number, so if we wanted to spend that, I could certainly look and see what that number is for this coming year. If we wanted to train everyone, that would take,
I'm not saying that I do, but
There's
there's,
probably a variation of training that might be cheaper or by someone else.
I would think if you're looking at just the escalation techniques, there's gotta be something else out there that doesn't necessarily give you a certificate to use restraint, because that's a little higher end. So if you need that for a teacher or you need that for a coach, I bet there's some sort of training over there on how to
I snap back.
And you still wear that,
And
huh?
it works.
Yeah, I look at it once in a while at softball tournaments. No, all right.
I can certainly talk to Mr. Brown about that. That's something we'd like to bring up.
I think the de-escalation would be nice. The restraint maybe not, but de-escalation would
Right.
be good. You know, especially a guy yelling at him for a balk. I mean,
Correct.
if that's one of
Right.
any other umpires,
See, every umpire should have that.
yeah, especially our younger umpires, maybe.
All right. There's no approval, nothing that has to be made. No. Anything else on that, guys? No, all right. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, you bet.
Good job on the zero.
Well, no promises for next year, but it's fine. It's always cool.
Discussion and possible action on action and staffing recommendations.
So we get recommendations for hiring for the middle school English teacher, Haley Schultz. She asked if she could also coach middle school volleyball. So we have her down for both of those. Really, it would be really nice, a middle school teacher coaching middle school. That'd be a real handy thing. That family seems to know coaching in sports. The assistant football coaches that Coach Haas has come up with is Tyler St. Clair, Mike Edwards, Rob Stavinus, Tanner Liebenthal, Sam Nelson. Some of you may recognize the last two names as former football players here. So we've got a couple of our grads getting involved with their kids. Stavinus from Rio, a former head coach at Rio. He's a pretty good addition, plus a Rio person to help keep the Rio people involved and keep kids there going. That's excellent. The other two gentlemen are people he's known in the past, that he's coached with in the past, that would come here and have more responsibility than they did at Sun Prairie. So that's this 5 assistant coaches, which is the number we had in our handbook. Concession coordinators, last I have today, we split the stipend between Holly Trotter and Amy Liebenthal. They also do student council, and it would kind of fit well with student council kids and then get some others involved. But we had a really good meeting with Colleen and Dave Brown and Holly and Amy and I about organizing concessions and making it consistent, so that pretty much every event you could go to, if we're holding an event, there's probably concessions going on, baseball, softball included. And you would see pretty much the same exact food at each one. And they're looking at expanding, like I did some baseball, softball 2 years ago, and we had candy and Gatorade and soda. That was really pretty much it. They would be expanding this and have concessions ready to go for all the different events. And I like the way that they are looking at how to split up the profits. I think we came up with a really good idea. I think these ladies are going to make our concessions better than we've had in the past.
Then is this rec, school, both?
This is for our school events. In the past, the athletic director did school and rec. So Dave said, I'd rather not do that this first year. He was in charge of rec tournaments. There's a tournament going on, he'd get the concessions and we'd have that organized. But this is for volleyball, football, basketball, baseball, softball, those kind of our high school events.
Because it would be nice to have concessions at our Little League.
Yes.
I mean, there's 100 people, 150 people down there. We don't have any,
We could look into something like that too.
you know,
That could be
or
expansion.
bring it up to a girls softball team or a boys basketball team or a football team.
There was money to be made.
There's a lot of money
Once
that
they
we
get
left
this-
on the table.
Once they get this organized and equipment, they'll have equipment in that place so that you could just, it's all here and it's organized. So they're working with Brian Anderson to equip and stock and put shelving in so that you can, this is a concession stand, it's not a storage room. This is a
Yeah.
concession room, so that you can have a group do it.
And I mean, I think the one that, like, because I would love that, but we just gotta be careful with Dave, like, I don't want it to then fall on his shoulders.
Yeah.
That it's just now he's coordinating who's gonna work concession stands and how am I gonna get the funds.
That would be extra for him. It'd be nice to find some group to say, hey, there's money to be made, why
Yeah.
don't we do this?
I know PPO, I was talking to a couple of members last night, and they were saying that PPO would even maybe do a couple of nights of concessions.
Especially, you know, like, we've had times up there where there's 3 games going on.
Yeah.
And that, it's really cool, but there's an opportunity for some group, it may not be on everyone, but you got at least 2 games going on. Especially really nice.
When the girls play, when they do the double headers, so there's a team always
for 3
sitting
hours.
there not playing, you know, so then they haven't had dinner, so now, you know, we're bringing in Subway and buying it at 4 o'clock.
So they would have things, it's not just snacks, they'd actually have something that could be supper at the concession stand. I mean, my kids grew up, concession stand food, that's all they ever ate, so these kids could do the same.
Because like as Little League coaches, you just saw this year, how many people, I mean, when you're dealing with 9 through 11-year-olds or whatever, everybody's parents are there, everybody's grandparents are there because most of the grandmas and grandpas are still alive. I mean, I mean, there are, and then the other night, there was 3 games going on. The girls had a game, the boys had a game, then there was a Little League game, and it was like, it was packed.
And it's dinner time.
Yeah, and it's,
Yeah.
the girls were starting at 5, we were starting at 6, and I mean, there was a lot of people down there. There's a lot of money that walked out of the parking lot that could have been left there.
So the night that it rained, I was down there, Waterloo was down there, I was actually watching some Waterloo kids, my friends. And the president of the WYSO for Waterloo said, what are you doing, Feets? Why don't you have a concession stand up here? And I'm like, I mean, I see a lot of kids and stuff. He said they raise about $18,000 a year on rec sports, and half of it comes from the summer.
Really?
Yes. They have cheeseburgers, because it's, again, at supper time.
Yeah, they're all playing something.
I'm telling you, there are a lot of people at these Little League games.
I'm like 18,000. He's like, we'll sell 100 cheeseburgers.
I think we're surprised how many people are attending. But
And
every,
also recruit rec parents.
Yeah,
Like, I'm a baseball parent, and that's kind of what I do in the Little League. My dad would be working concessions.
I know that's.
That's
I
what
think
Cody
that's
did for basketball, right, is we all had to sign up to a shift, and you could sign up for someone else's, whatever, but again, that's where I don't want that to fall on Dave.
Or you could spread that out between parents, high school football, middle school volleyball,
I
whatever.
like the PPO, like, I was talking to the DFW, they were saying they've got their Thursday drop tries, but maybe they could partner somehow, you know, I think
it
it's.
could be, I really love the PPO, because it's a lot of those age kids, parents, who are involved there. They like to come and watch anyway.
That's what they said in Waterloo. And they have that concession stand that's next to all the diamonds.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to thinking about it, because it doesn't take much for
No.
100 people to be at a game
Yeah.
and spend $2 or $5 on a cheeseburger and start doing math real quick. I mean,
If you have three, you know, 3 girls teams there.
Yeah.
Two Little League teams there and 2 high school age or middle school age teams.
That's maybe one of those next steps to
yeah,
improve that, and use that.
awesome.
But the PPO, you know, they would be really good to get them involved because all money would basically kind of filter back into the school.
It's like the pirate foundation.
Yeah.
We're making money off stuff, it's coming right back to us. Okay. Those are our recommendations.
So we're looking for a motion on the hiring of middle school English teacher Haley Schultz, middle school volleyball coach Haley Schultz, assistant football coaches Tyler St. Clair, Mike Edwards, Rob Stavnius, Tanner Liebenthal, Sam Nelson, and then the concession coordinators with Split, Holly Trotter, and Amy Liebenthal.
I'll make a motion to hire that, all of them.
Make
it easy. Yep.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Guy Robbins, seconded by Jeff Abeglin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Not in favor? All right, on to the district reports.
So, summer school's going great, second session's been going well. I was on vacation the first week of second session, so I just want to thank Carrie Lee, specifically the youth all for helping out. I know Dennis and Jennifer also were here helping out where they needed, so I appreciate that. But it seems to be going well. On my other hat, special ed, I was on the phone with EPI about 2.5 weeks ago, just finishing up some of the pieces. We were in a special ed audit this school year. And we are now, from the gentleman I was talking to, said we're all clear. He'll let the EPI know that we're good. We've met all our requirements. So that. The final notice comes to me sometime in October, but I don't anticipate any hiccups. There are a couple areas that we're working on through the school year. I kept sent all the things that we're working on this school year for the audit to the staff, so they knew exactly what it was for each IEP, and I kept it right on my desk all year. So as I read every IEP throughout the school year, that's about 70 IEPs. That I keep that note right there so that when I got to those sections, I knew we were doing it right, and I would ask the teachers to make changes if they needed to. So that made the audit go pretty quick and smooth, I think, overall this year. So I'm glad that that's my second year as special ed director. Everybody tells the horror stories. The audit, I thought it was pretty.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
My report, I've talked about a lot of stuff already, except maybe that at the end of every July, I go to the WASDA Superintendent's Conference for Legal Seminar to learn everything that's new in law for school over the past year, and some good reminders. They always go into special ed law, which I learned a lot of stuff back with Ryan. They do a lot of personnel type things, laws that involve schools, things that may help us when we're doing our policies. Speaking of which, we're probably starting in September, having our policy committee get together. We're almost done going through our drafts and got get some board input on things. I really got to thank Andrew and Ryan and Jennifer's been here lately, and Zachary was here before he left, and Jake Harden's been in. We've had lots of people work on this, and many times do make the labor light. So I appreciate everyone pitching in and looking at policies so we have something to bring to the policy committee started then. So anyway, that's a really good conference. I learn a lot or get reminders and try to help keep us out of trouble and try to not have somebody versus the Fall River School District as a test case. They don't want that. So that's coming up. And the other thing, just remind you, next board meeting is Wednesday, August 17th. At 5 o'clock, we're inviting everybody who wants to meet the new staff. We're going to try, it's the first day of their new teacher in service. They're going to be out here in the commons. We'll have some snacks and some drinks, and we'll get organized in some way so people can meet all these new staff that we're excited about. Some of the ones that you approved tonight. We're going to invite everyone out there. We'd like you to come and mingle with them and meet the people. You've heard the names, some of them you've met, but just get a chance to meet these people. Plus, they'll be our kids' teachers, and maybe some of the kids want to come, some of the parents want to come, community members. We're inviting anyone who wants to come meet these new people who are now part of our school family. And then some spot will come into the meeting, and who knows, they may stay out there and keep visiting with people, but we'll try get name tags, or I don't know, we'll do something so people can identify them, who the new people are. We'll put big Franklin shirts on or something.
And that's before the next school board meeting?
Yep, at 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, all right.
Yeah, so we're gonna do that. I think it'd be nice, at least if the board members got to meet these names you've heard. And a lot of you are gonna be very excited about, and you get to know them first. That'd be really, really nice. And again, we're teaching our kids. So we're gonna invite all of them to see if we can get them here for that night. The last thing I should talk about is something that I never want to mention over again, but it's COVID. we had a meeting before we came tonight about what we think would be best for this year, and that the board is giving the administration the right to do whatever works best. And we're looking at not quarantining. People don't want to test, find out they have COVID, I got quarantine. And Jessica, in her opinion, our nurse, Jessica Sempelinski, says, the way it is now, most people are sick, they're staying home. They feel better, they're coming. And if they are sick, if you don't quarantine them, they're more likely to say, well, test me. I want to make sure I don't have COVID. And if you do, okay, yeah, I better go home. But so things that people will be more willing to test, more willing to talk to her, or also just be willing to stay home. So we're not finding out a lot of people who have it until about their 5th day of symptoms. It's like, oh, maybe this is COVID, because they think it's something else now. She said, so they're really gonna have a couple more days of quarantine left. And they usually stay home those days, so she thinks it's best to be not quarantined, tell people you're sick, stay home. If you feel better, come back to school, and allow them to test if you want to help you know if you should be staying home. She also thinks that in the past, we had given staff the last 2 years 10 extra COVID days, that if you were sick, family member sick or something, that you could stay home so you didn't come infect people. She says, I would like to do that, but down to 5 days this year. So that would also encourage them, I'm not feeling well, maybe I have it, test me. If I do, it can count as one of my 5 COVID days, but I can also get away and not affect other people. So these are the recommendations she brought forward, and they made sense to Ryan and I. And Jennifer was actually here for a little bit tonight before we sent her home to rest. And that's what we're going to probably be sharing with staff and parents. And she's going to put out like a monthly nursing newsletter so that all the parents know what's going on. She did a really good job of that last year, sending out information to parents. So
So if they do test positive, are they still required?
they're going to send them home, but not quarantine.
Now, no quarantine.
Yeah, when the symptoms are done, then come back. And she said, all the COVID now is like, it's usually 2 days when it's done. And I've talked to parents who said, I almost wish I didn't get tested because now I know that they stay out so many days. So this may encourage people to actually test and say, maybe they do have COVID. But the one mom, because of the quarantine, said, I wish I had tested. We missed a week of baseball. And he was fine day 2. So I think that will encourage people to do the right thing. And we aren't going to force you to stay home for a week. They said the symptoms, everybody's getting, even when she's at the ER down in Madison on weekends, she said symptoms don't last very long anymore. All these strains are less tough and they're shorter durations than the first time around. So it really is shorter. You should just get better, come back. All right. And maybe I'll never say that word again.
This is the disappointing part of the meeting where I have to make a motion to adjourn. I thought I did a really good job. I just want to pat myself on the back. Thanks, Derek.
Resident next year, huh?
Yeah. Then I guess we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion was made by Jeff, seconded by Guy. All those in favor, I say aye.
Aye.
Aye.